Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the viewing deck of the space station, watching the massive cargo ships approach. After 50 years of asking, humanity had finally been allowed to join the Galactic Council. Today was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, Elena felt her jaw tighten as she watched what the aliens called their welcome gift. The cargo ships carried junk, broken pieces of old warships, rusted metal panels, and equipment that looked like it had been thrown away decades ago. The alien ambassador standing beside her seemed pleased with himself. "Behold, humans," said Ambassador Zixthera, his 4 arms gesturing toward the approaching ships, "the finest collection of galactic technology ever assembled for a new species. These are the remains of our greatest warships, gifted to help your people understand proper space travel." Elena looked at the tall, blue-skinned alien. His voice carried the same tone adults used when giving children broken toys to play with. She had heard that tone many times during the 50 years humanity had begged for acceptance into the galactic community. "This is very generous," Elena said, keeping her voice steady. She had learned not to show anger around the aliens. They saw human emotions as proof that humans were too primitive for serious consideration. "Indeed it is," Zixthera replied. "These ships once belonged to the greatest civilizations in the galaxy, the Kalani energy shields that protected entire fleets, Vorthak weapon systems that could crack planets, Nexari engines that bent space itself. Of course, they are all quite old and damaged now. But perhaps your engineers can learn something from studying them." Elena watched as the first cargo ship began dumping its load into the designated area of space. Twisted metal fragments tumbled through the void, glinting in the light of distant stars. She saw pieces of hull plating covered in scorch marks, weapon barrels that had been melted by overheating, and engine components that looked like they had exploded from the inside. "How old are these pieces?" Elena asked. "Oh, some are quite recent," Zixthera said with a dismissive wave of one hand. "Perhaps only 2 or 3 centuries old. Others date back nearly 1,000 years. Time moves differently for advanced civilizations. You understand? What seems ancient to your species is merely yesterday to us." Elena nodded and said nothing. She had studied the alien civilizations for decades. She knew their ships, their technology, their strengths and weaknesses. What the ambassador saw as generous charity, she saw as something else entirely. Opportunity. Behind them, other human officials watched the spectacle with carefully controlled expressions. General Martinez, head of Earth's military, stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His weathered face showed nothing, but Elena could see the slight tightening around his eyes that meant he was thinking hard. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, was taking notes on her tablet. Her fingers moved quickly as she cataloged each piece of debris that floated past the viewing window. Elena caught her eye and saw the same spark of interest she felt herself. "We are curious about one thing," said another alien who had remained silent until now. This one was shorter and covered in what looked like green scales. "Your species has shown remarkable persistence in requesting membership, yet you have contributed nothing to galactic civilization. No breakthrough technologies, no artistic achievements, no philosophical insights. Why should we invest in your development?" Elena had heard this question before. Every alien species seemed to ask it eventually. They looked at humanity and saw a young race that had barely left its home planet. They saw chemical rockets instead of space-folding engines. They saw metal bullets instead of energy weapons. They saw a species that still fought wars with each other instead of achieving perfect unity. What they did not see was what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. "We appreciate the opportunity to learn," Elena said carefully. "Perhaps our contribution will become clear in time." Zixthera made a sound that might have been laughter. "Time. Yes, you humans are always concerned with time. You want everything to happen quickly, but true advancement takes patience. The Kalani spent 10,000 years perfecting their shield technology. The Vorthak needed 5,000 years to develop their weapons. The Nexari took even longer to master space travel. And yet," Elena said quietly, "humans went from the first powered flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. The aliens exchanged glances. Elena could see they found this amusing rather than impressive. To species that measured progress in millennia, human speed looked like reckless impatience. "Speed without wisdom leads to disaster," the scaled alien said. "Better to advance slowly and correctly than quickly and foolishly." Elena wanted to point out that their correctly advanced civilizations had filled space with enough junk to require dumping it on newcomers. Instead, she smiled and nodded. The cargo ships continued their work for hours. Elena watched every piece of debris as it was deposited in the growing cloud of discarded technology. She saw Kalani shield generators with their distinctive crystalline structures, Vorthak plasma cannons still mounted in twisted gun housings, Nexari engine cores that had once bent space to their will. Each piece told a story. The aliens saw the ending of that story, old technology that had been replaced by newer, better versions. But Elena saw something different. She saw the beginning of a new story. "When can we begin studying these materials?" she asked. "Whenever you wish," Sixathera replied. "Though I must warn you, the technology is quite complex. It may take your scientists many years simply to understand how each component functions, and even then, recreating this technology will likely prove impossible. For a species at your current level, we understand," Elena said. "We will do our best to learn." As the last cargo ship finished its delivery, Elena was already making mental lists. She would need her best engineers, the ones who could look at broken machinery and see how to make it work again. She would need material specialists who could analyze alien metals and find ways to work with them. Most importantly, she would need the kind of people who saw challenges as invitations rather than obstacles. The aliens prepared to leave, satisfied that they had fulfilled their obligation to the newest member of the Galactic Council. As their ship departed, General Martinez moved to stand beside Elena. "What are you thinking?" he asked quietly. Elena continued watching the cloud of debris floating in space. Thousands of pieces of technology from dozens of different alien civilizations, all mixed together in a chaotic jumble. No single species would ever consider combining technologies from their natural enemies or traditional rivals. Each race had developed their own methods and stuck to them for thousands of years. But humans were different. Humans had always been scavengers, tinkerers, and inventors. They took ideas from anywhere and everywhere, combining them in ways that no one expected. They had built their entire civilization by borrowing, adapting, and improving on whatever they could find. "I'm thinking," Elena said slowly, "that they just made a very big mistake." She turned away from the viewing window and headed for the communication center. She had calls to make, teams to assemble, and work to begin. The aliens had given humanity their trash, expecting nothing more than amateur attempts at reverse engineering. They were about to learn what humans could do with other people's cast-offs. Elena smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. This was going to be interesting. 6 months later, the Titan shipyard buzzed with activity unlike anything it had ever seen. What had once been a quiet research facility now resembled a massive junkyard where the galaxy's brightest minds played with broken toys. Elena Rodriguez walked through the chaos watching her team of misfits and geniuses turn alien garbage into something remarkable. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Marcus Webb from across the main floor. The former aerospace engineer had been Elena's first recruit, a man who had spent his career making spacecraft from Earth's limited materials. Now he stood beside a Kalani shield generator that was twice his height, its crystalline structure pulsing with soft blue light. Elena made her way through the maze of alien components that filled every available space. Kalani energy shields stood next to Vorthak weapon arrays. Nexari engine parts were stacked beside silicate armor plating. The mixture would have horrified any alien engineer, but it made Elena's heart race with possibilities. "What have you found?" she asked Webb. He pointed to a series of readings on his tablet. "The Kalani shields don't just deflect energy attacks. They absorb them and store the power in these crystal matrices. But look at this. They never figured out how to release that stored energy as a weapon. They just let it dissipate slowly. Over time." Elena studied the data. "Wasted energy?" "Exactly. But what if we combined it with Vorthak plasma technology? Their weapons are incredibly powerful, but they consume enormous amounts of energy. If we could feed them power from the shields get stronger when attacked, and the weapons get more powerful," Elena finished. She had learned to think like her team, seeing connections where others saw only separate systems. Across the work area, Dr. Sarah Chen was having her own breakthrough. The theoretical physicist had been studying Nexari engines for weeks, trying to understand how they folded space to achieve faster-than-light travel. The technology was beyond anything humans had developed, but Chen had found something the Nexari had missed. "Captain," Chen called out, not looking up from the engine core she was examining. "These engines create a space-folding field by generating controlled gravitational waves, but the Nexari only use them in one direction at a time, either forward or backward, left or right, up or down. They never considered combining multiple directional fields. Elena walked over to where Chen knelt beside the massive engine. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. What would happen if they did combine them? Theoretical. A ship could move in ways that would be impossible to predict or track. Instead of following normal physics, it could appear to teleport short distances, change direction without slowing down, or even seem to be in multiple places at once. And practically? Chen grinned. I think I can make it work. In another section of the shipyard, Chief Engineer Tommy Rodriguez, no relation to Elena despite the name, was solving a different kind of problem. The young man had grown up in the IR machine shops of Detroit, learning to make any engine run no matter how badly it was broken. Now he was applying those skills to alien technology with remarkable results. The problem, he explained to Elena as she stopped by his workstation, is that each alien species built their stuff to work only with their own technology. Kalani power systems use crystal resonance frequencies. Vorthak systems use plasma, flow dynamics. Nexari systems use gravitational field manipulation. They're like trying to connect a gasoline engine to an electric motor to a steam turbine. Elena looked at the bizarre collection of components he had assembled. Cables, tubes, and connecting rods ran between devices that had never been designed to work together. But you found a way? I found several ways, Tommy grinned. The trick is not trying to make them compatible. Instead, I'm building translation systems. Power converters that change crystal energy into plasma flow. Field generators that convert gravitational waves into electromagnetic pulses. It's like having a universal translator, but for energy instead of language. The work was not without problems. Dr. Jennifer Park, the team's materials expert, had been dealing with catastrophic failures for weeks. Different alien metals had different properties, and combining them often resulted in spectacular explosions. The Vorthak use a metal that gets stronger when heated, she explained to Elena while standing near a blast-scarred testing chamber. The silicates use ceramics that get harder under pressure. Kalani crystals store energy when they vibrate. But when you put them all together, things explode, Elena observed, looking at the scorch marks on the walls. Things explode magnificently, Park corrected. But I think I figured out how to control the reactions. Instead of trying to prevent the incompatibilities, we embrace them. The controlled explosions can be used to power the translation systems Tommy built. Elena was beginning to see the bigger picture. Her team was not just combining alien technologies, they were creating something entirely new. Each system enhanced the others in ways that no single species had ever imagined. The conflicts between different technologies were becoming features instead of problems, but the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was the youngest member of the team, a former Navy mechanic who specialized in keeping old equipment running with improvised repairs. While the scientists focused on understanding alien technology, Morrison focused on making it work with human engineering. Captain, I've been thinking about the structural problems, he said during one of their daily briefings. All these alien ships were built by species that evolved in different environments. The Kalani are tall and thin, so their ships have lots of vertical space. The Vorthak are short and wide, so their ships are built low and spread out. The Nexari don't even have fixed shapes, so their ships can reconfigure themselves. And humans? Elena asked. Humans are adaptable. We fit ourselves to whatever space we're in. But more than that, we're social. Every other alien species builds their ships for a specific role. Warship, transport, research vessel. They specialize. But humans, we build things that can be many things at once. Elena nodded, beginning to understand. A ship that can adapt to any situation. Exactly. Instead of building a Kalani ship with Vorthak weapons and Nexari engines, we build a human ship that uses all their technologies in ways they never considered. The team worked with increasing excitement as the concept took shape. They were not reverse engineering alien technology. They were evolving it. Each breakthrough led to new possibilities. Each solution created new questions to explore. 3 months later, Elena stood in front of a holographic display showing their preliminary designs. The ship looked like nothing that had ever flown in galactic space. Its hull combined Kalani crystals with Vorthak metals and silicate ceramics in patterns that seemed to flow like liquid. Nexari engines were integrated directly into the structure instead of being mounted as separate components. Weapon systems were distributed throughout the ship, rather than concentrated in traditional gun decks. General Martinez had arrived for a progress report. He studied the hologram with the eye of a military professional. It doesn't look like any warship I've ever seen. That's the point, Elena replied. Every alien species builds ships that fit their way of thinking. They've been doing it the same way for thousands of years. But we're not bound by their limitations. The aliens who gave us this scrap, Dr. Chen added, they expect us to build copies of their old ships. Crude imitations that prove we understand their technology, but could never surpass it. Elena smiled. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when humans get access to everyone's technology at once. General Martinez nodded slowly. When do we begin construction? Construction began yesterday, Elena said. But first, we need to solve one more problem. All these different systems working together creates a lot of instabilities. The ship needs a control system that can manage constant conflicts between incompatible technologies. Can it be done? Martinez asked. Elena looked at her team of brilliant misfits, each one focused on problems that alien species had considered impossible to solve. They were welding together technologies from natural enemies, combining power systems that should have destroyed each other, and creating weapon arrays that shouldn't theoretically work. General, she said, we're humans. Making impossible things work is what we do. The explosion nearly killed everyone in Section 7 of the shipyard. Elena Rodriguez arrived at the scene to find her team pulling themselves out from behind blast barriers, their faces blackened with soot but their eyes bright with excitement. In the center of the testing bay, what remained of their prototype control system sparked and smoldered. Well, said Dr. Sarah Chen, brushing debris from her lab coat, that was informative. Informative? Elena stared at the wreckage. They had been working on the ship for 8 months, and every attempt to integrate the alien systems resulted in spectacular failures. Sarah, you nearly got blown into space. But now we know what doesn't work, Chen replied cheerfully. She pulled up a tablet that had somehow survived the blast. The Kalani crystal matrices, Vorthak plasma conduits, and Nexari gravitational field generators create a feedback loop when they're all active at the same time. The energy builds up faster than any single system can handle. Chief Engineer Tommy Rodriguez emerged from behind a twisted piece of hull plating. The power couplings held for almost 30 seconds this time. That's 15 seconds longer than the last test. 30 seconds before catastrophic failure is not progress, Elena said, but she was already thinking. Her team's optimism in the face of constant explosions had taught her to look for opportunity in every disaster. Lieutenant Jake Morrison appeared from the other side of the wreckage, carrying a piece of melted alien circuitry. Captain, look at this. The Vorthak plasma system didn't just overload. It tried to adapt to the crystal resonance from the Kalani shields. See these burn patterns? The plasma actually formed stable spirals for a few seconds. Elena examined the damaged component. The metal showed stress patterns unlike anything in Earth's engineering manuals. It was trying to find equilibrium. Exactly, Morrison said. The systems aren't incompatible. They're trying to work together, but they don't know how. Dr. Marcus Webb joined the discussion, his engineering tablet displaying power flow diagrams that looked like abstract art. Each alien species solved the problem of power management differently. The Kalani use harmonic resonance to balance their systems. The Vorthak use pressure regulation. The Nexari use gravitational dampening. When we combine them, each system tries to impose its own solution on the others. Elena walked through the wreckage, her mind racing. For months they had been trying to force alien technologies to work together. They had assumed the problem was making incompatible systems compatible. But what if they were approaching it backwards? What if we stop fighting the chaos? She asked suddenly. The team looked at her with interest. They had learned to pay attention when their captain got that particular tone in her voice. Explain, Chen said. Every alien species has spent thousands of years perfecting their technology to eliminate instability. They want everything to run smoothly and predictably. But what if instability is exactly what we need? Elena moved to a clean section of the workshop where they kept their computers. She pulled up the data from all their failed tests, hundreds of explosions and overloads that had taught them what not to do. Look at the patterns, she said, highlighting the power fluctuations that preceded each failure. The systems aren't random. They're trying to communicate with each other. The Kalani crystals pulse, the Vorthak plasma flows, and the Nexari fields oscillate. Each one is sending signals that the others don't understand. Webb frowned at the data. So instead of trying to make them speak the same language, we teach them to understand each other's languages, Elena finished. We don't eliminate the chaos, we orchestrate it. Chen's eyes went wide. Dynamic equilibrium. Instead of stable balance, we create controlled instability that can adapt to changing conditions. Can it be done? Elena asked. Chen was already running calculations on her tablet. Theoretically, yes. We would need a control system that doesn't try to prevent the fluctuations, but instead predicts and channels them. Like conducting an orchestra where every musician is playing a different song, but somehow making it work together. Practically? Elena pressed. I have no idea, Chen admitted. No one has ever tried to build something like this. The computational requirements alone would be enormous. Tommy Rodriguez had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. What about the human element? Everyone turned to look at him. The young engineer had a reputation for finding simple solutions to complex problems. Hear me out, Tommy said. Every alien species builds automated systems because they think the same way for thousands of years. Their ships run themselves because the aliens are predictable. But humans aren't predictable. We adapt constantly. What if the ship needs a crew that can adapt as fast as the technology changes? Elena saw where he was going. A ship that requires human intuition to function. More than that, Tommy continued, getting excited. A ship that gets better as the crew learns to work with it. Instead of trying to build a perfect system, we build a system that improves itself through interaction with unpredictable humans. Dr. Jennifer Park, who had been examining the blast damage, suddenly looked up. That could work. I've been analyzing the metal fatigue patterns from all our explosions. The alien materials don't just break when overstressed. They remember the stress. Each failure teaches the materials how to handle similar stress in the future. Elena felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. A learning ship, technology that adapts and improves through conflict rather than breaking down. It would be completely unprecedented, Chen said. No alien species has ever built technology that requires constant adaptation. They see unpredictability as a flaw, to be eliminated. But humans, Elena said, see unpredictability as an opportunity to be creative. The team spent the next week redesigning everything they had built. Instead of trying to prevent the conflicts between alien systems, they created ways to harness those conflicts. The Kalani crystals, Vorthak plasma conduits, and Nexari field generators became part of a complex dance, each system pushing against the others in controlled ways that generated more power than any of them could produce alone. The control system they designed was unlike anything in galactic civilization. Instead of automated responses to predetermined situations, it required constant input from human operators who could make split-second decisions about how to balance competing forces. The ship would not work without a crew, and it would work differently for every crew that operated it. When they were ready for the next test, Elena gathered her team around a much smaller prototype than their previous attempts. This version looked deliberately unstable, with exposed power conduits that pulsed with different colors of energy and control panels that seemed to shift their configurations randomly. Remember, Elena told her team, we're not trying to make it stable. We're trying to make it work. Chen activated the Kalani crystals first. They began to resonate with a low harmonic that seemed to vibrate through the deck plating. Webb brought the Vorthak plasma system online, and immediately the crystal's harmonics began to fluctuate. But instead of fighting the change, Morrison adjusted the Nexari field generators to match the new patterns. The prototype did not explode. Instead, it hummed with a complex rhythm that sounded almost like music. The different alien systems were finding ways to work together, creating something that was more than the sum of its parts. Power output is 30% higher than theoretical maximum for any individual system, Chen reported, her voice filled with wonder. The instabilities are actually generating additional energy. Elena watched the readings as her team fine-tuned the interactions between alien technologies that had never been designed to work together. They were succeeding because they had stopped trying to impose order and instead had learned to ride the chaos. How long can we maintain this? She asked. Tommy Rodriguez, who was monitoring the structural stress patterns, grinned. As long as we keep adapting to it. The system is stable because it's constantly changing. Elena nodded and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Begin full construction of the ship. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do with their garbage. Webb looked up from his control panel. What should we call it? Elena thought about the aliens who had given humanity their cast-off technology, expecting nothing more than crude attempts at imitation. She thought about her team of brilliant misfits who had turned incompatible systems into a symphony of controlled chaos. She thought about the ship they were about to build, a vessel that would require human creativity and adaptability to function. "The Terran Defiance," she said, "because we're about to defy everything the galaxy thinks it knows about technology." The message from the Galactic Council arrived exactly 2 years after they had delivered their gift to humanity. Elena Rodriguez read it twice before calling her senior staff to the bridge of the Terran Defiance, which hung in space like a predator waiting to hunt. "They want a demonstration," Elena announced to her assembled crew. Around her, the bridge hummed with controlled chaos as Kalani crystals pulsed in harmony with Forthak plasma conduits, while Nexari field generators created subtle ripples in space-time itself. Commander David Park, her first officer and former Navy pilot, looked up from his console where he was conducting what could only be described as a conversation with the ship's weapons systems. "What kind of demonstration?" "A war game against the hegemony's newest dreadnought," Elena replied. "The cosmic supremacy. They want to see if we learned anything from their educational materials." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had been working with the Terran Defiance for months, learning to partner with technology that required human intuition to function properly. Each crew member had developed a unique relationship with their alien systems, understanding how to coax maximum performance from equipment that would have baffled its original builders. Chief Engineer Tommy Rodriguez's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. "Captain, the ship wants to know if it's finally going to get to stretch its legs." Elena smiled. The Terran Defiance had developed something that could almost be called personality during its construction. The hybrid systems created emergent behaviors that seemed to respond to the crew's expectations and emotions. It was as if the ship was eager to prove itself. "Tell the ship it will get its chance," Elena said. "How long until we reach the designated coordinates?" 3 hours at current speed, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the navigation station. The young officer had become something of an expert at using Nexari space-folding technology to plot courses that no alien species had ever attempted. Elena studied the tactical information about their opponent. The cosmic supremacy was the pride of the hegemony fleet, a massive dreadnought that incorporated the finest technology from 6 different alien civilizations. It was over 2 kilometers long, carried enough firepower to level a small moon, and was protected by shields that had never been penetrated in combat. More importantly, it was commanded by Admiral Thexvar, one of the most respected military minds in the galaxy. The beetle-like alien had won victories against every major spacefaring species, and was considered the finest tactical genius of his generation. Elena called up the ship's specifications on the main screen. Standard hegemony design philosophy. Overwhelming firepower, impenetrable defense, and predictable tactics based on 1,000 years of successful military tradition. "In other words," said Commander Park, "exactly the kind of thinking we were built to counter." "Exactly." Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. They were an unusual group by military standards. Too creative for most commanders, too willing to improvise and take risks. But those traits made them perfect for operating technology that required constant adaptation. "Final systems check," Elena ordered. "I want to know that everything is working at peak efficiency." The next hour was filled with the controlled chaos that had become routine aboard the Terran Defiance. Unlike alien ships with their automated systems and predictable responses, the human vessel required active participation from its crew to function. Each station was a collaboration between human intuition and alien technology, creating capabilities that neither could achieve alone. Dr. Marcus Webb coordinated the power systems, balancing the competing demands of Kalani crystals, Vorthak plasma generators, and Nexari field manipulators. His console looked like abstract art as colored lights danced across displays that showed energy flows no alien engineer would recognize. Lieutenant Jake Morrison managed the structural systems, monitoring the stress patterns and hull plating that had been designed to get stronger under pressure. The ship's armor was a living thing that adapted to damage and learned from every impact. Weapons Officer Chen Liu worked with plasma arrays that had been integrated with Kalani energy storage systems and Nexari field focusing technology. Her weapons could fire in patterns that would confuse any conventional targeting system. As they approached the test coordinates, Elena could see their opponent on the long-range sensors. The cosmic supremacy hung in space like a monument to alien engineering, its hull a perfect example of mathematical precision and technological superiority. Beside it, the Terran Defiance looked like a work of abstract sculpture, its flowing lines and organic curves completely unlike anything in the Galactic Navy. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Lisa Torres. Admiral Thexvar wishes to speak with you. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Hegemony dreadnought. Admiral Thexvar stood in the center, his forearms folded in a gesture Elena recognized as condescension. Behind him, his crew worked at stations that looked like they had been built for display rather than efficiency. Captain Rodriguez, the Admiral's voice was translated through the ship's communication system. I must admit, I am curious about this vessel you have constructed. Our sensors show some unusual energy signatures. Thank you, Admiral, Elena replied politely. We've learned a great deal from the materials the Council provided. Indeed, I hope you understand that this exercise is purely educational. My orders are to demonstrate the difference between proper galactic technology and primitive attempts at imitation. I will endeavor to make your defeat as instructive as possible. Elena felt the ship around her respond to the alien's dismissive tone. The Terran Defiance did not like being underestimated. We appreciate the lesson, Admiral. We're ready to begin whenever you are. Very well. Thexvar's image vanished as the communication ended. Elena looked at her crew. Everyone ready? Around the bridge, her officers nodded. They had trained for this moment for months, learning to work as partners with technology that no other species understood. The ship hummed with anticipation, its hybrid systems balanced, on the edge of controlled chaos. Begin combat maneuvers, Elena ordered. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations, though most analysts would never fully understand what they were seeing. The cosmic supremacy, fought according to established patterns that had brought victory for over 1,000 years. It maneuvered in predictable formations, fired weapons in mathematically optimized patterns, and used shields in ways that alien tacticians had perfected through countless conflicts. The Terran Defiance fought like nothing that had ever existed in galactic space. It moved in ways that seemed to violate physics, appearing to teleport short distances as its Nexari engines folded space in patterns the original builders had never imagined. Its weapons fired from unexpected angles as plasma arrays shifted position throughout the ship's structure. Its shields did not just deflect incoming attacks, they absorbed the energy and fed it back into weapon systems that grew more powerful with each hit. Admiral Thexvar's perfectly planned attacks found nothing where his target should have been. His mathematically precise weapon salvos struck shields that turned his own firepower against him. His overwhelming technological superiority met human unpredictability and found itself unable to adapt. Impossible. The Admiral's voice came across the communication channel as his ship's systems reported damage from weapons that should not exist. Your vessel cannot move in such patterns. Your weapons cannot operate at those power levels. Your shields cannot convert absorbed energy so efficiently. Elena smiled as she felt the Terran Defiance respond to her crew's instincts and improvisation. You're right, Admiral. Our ship can't do any of those things, but our ship plus our crew can do all of them and more. The exercise ended when the Cosmic Supremacy's main weapons array overloaded, trying to penetrate shields that grew stronger with each attack. Admiral Thexvar's perfect dreadnought hung powerless in space, while the Terran Defiance circled it, like a predator that had chosen not to kill. Elena opened a communication channel to the disabled ship. Admiral, thank you for the educational exercise. We learned a great deal about the difference between following established patterns and creating new possibilities. The alien commander's response was barely a whisper. What have you done? What have you built? Elena looked around her bridge where her crew was already preparing for their return to Earth. The ship hummed with satisfaction, its hybrid systems having proven themselves against the finest technology in the galaxy. We built exactly what you gave us the materials to build, Admiral. We just did it the human way. The news of humanity's victory spread through galactic communication networks faster than light itself. Within hours, every major civilization knew that the newest members of the Galactic Council had defeated the Hegemony's finest warship using technology cobbled together from their own discarded materials. Elena Rodriguez stood in the council chambers, the same place where Ambassador Zixthera had presented humanity with what he called a generous gift of educational materials. Now the chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all trying to understand how their rejected technology had been transformed into something that surpassed their finest achievements. This is unprecedented, declared Counselor Fexithani of the Kalani Collective, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights in nervous patterns. Our shield generators were designed to operate within specific harmonic frequencies. The modifications you have made should have resulted in catastrophic resonance failure. Elena remained calm as she faced the assembly of alien dignitaries. Behind her, a holographic display showed technical specifications of the Terran Defiance. Though she knew the aliens would never truly understand what they were seeing, the ship was more than the sum of its parts, requiring human creativity and adaptability to function. The modifications work because we stopped trying to prevent the resonance failures, Elena explained. Instead, we learned to use them. Your shield technology becomes more efficient when it's forced to adapt to changing conditions. Supreme Engineer Mordak of the Vorthak Empire stepped forward, his massive frame bristling with confusion and anger. Impossible. Plasma containment systems cannot be operated outside their design parameters. The energy densities you achieved would melt any known material. You're correct, Elena agreed. The plasma systems cannot be operated outside their design parameters using Vorthak methods. But when combined with Kalani crystal matrices and Nexari field manipulation, they can operate at energy densities you never imagined possible. The chamber erupted in dozens of different languages as alien representatives struggled to comprehend what they were hearing. For thousands of years, each species had perfected their own technological approaches, considering any deviation from established methods to be primitive and dangerous. Ambassador Zixathera, who had delivered the original scrap materials to humanity, stood with his forearms trembling in what Elena recognized as shock. You were supposed to study our technology and build crude imitations. You were supposed to prove that younger species could learn from their betters. Instead, we have done what humans do, Elena said simply. We looked at your broken pieces and saw infinite possibilities. Master Navigator Kelthara of the Nexari Collective spoke next, her voice carrying harmonics that indicated deep distress. Our gravitational field generators were never intended to be combined with other propulsion systems. The space-time distortions you have created should have torn your ship apart. Elena smiled. Your gravitational field generators work perfectly when used exactly as you designed them. But you designed them for Nexari ships operated by Nexari, crews following Nexari tactical doctrines. We use them on a human ship operated by a human crew following human instincts. Human instincts, repeated Counselor Prime Hextar of the Central Authority, his mechanical voice carrying skeptical overtones. You speak as if unpredictability is an advantage rather than a fatal flaw. For us, it is an advantage, Elena replied. Every alien species in this chamber has spent millennia perfecting their technology to eliminate variables and create predictable results. But humans thrive on variables. We adapt to changing situations faster than your computers can calculate optimal responses. She gestured to the holographic display which showed combat footage from the battle with the cosmic supremacy. Your admiral fought a perfect battle according to every tactical manual in galactic civilization. Every decision he made was mathematically optimal based on thousands of years of military experience. The footage showed the massive hegemony dreadnought, maneuvering in textbook formations, firing weapons in precisely calculated patterns, and deploying shields according to established defensive doctrines. But perfection has a weakness, Elena continued. It cannot adapt to something it has never encountered before. Your admiral fought against a ship that operated outside every tactical manual ever written, using weapons that combined technologies from natural enemies, and maneuvered in ways that violated the basic assumptions of space combat. The chamber fell silent as the alien representatives watched their most advanced warship being systematically defeated by technology they had thrown away. Elena looked around the assembly of galactic powers. You gave us your scrap because you thought we were primitives who needed to be educated about proper technology, but you forgot something important about humanity. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. We are the species that turned sticks and stones into tools. We took fire and made it serve us. We looked at metal ore in the ground and built machines that could fly. We took lightning from the sky and used it to power our cities. We turned sand into computer chips that could think faster than biological brains. Elena's voice grew stronger as she spoke. We took your cast-offs and created something none of you ever imagined because that is what humans do. We don't just use technology, we reimagine it. We don't just follow established methods, we create new possibilities. Ambassador Zixathera finally found his voice. But this changes everything. If younger species can surpass their elders by combining technologies in unexpected ways, then the galaxy becomes a much more interesting place, Elena finished. You have been stagnating for thousands of years, each species perfecting their own narrow specializations while ignoring the potential for synthesis and collaboration. Counselor Vexathani's crystalline form flickered with rapid pattern changes that indicated intense thought. The implications are significant. If human methods can improve upon our technology, then perhaps we have been approaching advancement incorrectly. Elena nodded. Every species in the galaxy has strengths that others lack. The Kalani understand energy resonance better than anyone. The Vorthak have mastered plasma dynamics. The Nexari can manipulate spacetime itself. But none of you ever considered combining your strengths because you see each other as competitors rather than potential partners. Supreme Engineer Mordak spoke slowly, his voice carrying tones Elena had never heard from a Vorthak before. You propose cooperation between traditional enemies? I propose cooperation between species who have spent so long focusing on their differences that they forgot to explore their complementary strengths, Elena replied. Humanity succeeded because we were not bound by your ancient rivalries and cultural limitations. She gestured to the holographic display again, this time showing technical specifications that revealed how human engineering had integrated incompatible systems. We saw Kalani crystals and Vorthak plasma conduits not as technologies from competing civilizations, but as puzzle pieces that could fit together if approached from a new angle. Master Navigator Kelthara asked the question that Elena had been waiting for. What do you intend to do with this advancement? Elena smiled and activated a new section of the holographic display. It showed images from shipyards throughout human space where construction was underway on vessels that made the Terran Defiance look like a prototype. The Terran Defiance was our proof of concept, Elena explained. It demonstrated that human methods could transform your discarded technology into something unprecedented, but it was never intended to be unique. The alien representatives stared at the images of human shipyards working around the clock to build vessels that incorporated lessons learned from their first hybrid warship. Each ship was different, designed by teams who had approached the same basic technologies from new angles and discovered new possibilities. How many? Whispered Ambassador Zixathera. Enough, Elena replied. Humanity has learned that the galaxy is full of species who have amazing technologies but limited imaginations. We intend to change that limitation, one innovation at a time. Counselor. Prime Hextar's mechanical voice carried a note Elena interpreted as resignation. You realize that this development will fundamentally alter the balance of power in galactic civilization. The balance was already altered the moment you gave us access to everyone's technology, Elena pointed out. You just didn't realize it. Yet. Elena looked around the chamber one final time. You gave us your scrap because you thought we were too primitive to understand proper technology. Instead, you gave us the keys to surpass every limitation you had accepted as unchangeable. She turned and walked toward the chamber exit, her message delivered. As she reached the doors, she paused and looked back at the assembly of alien representatives, who were still struggling to comprehend what humanity had accomplished. Thank you, she said simply, for the educational materials. We learned exactly what you intended us to learn, that there is always a better way to do things. We just learned it differently than you expected. As Elena left the chamber behind her, the alien representatives began what would become the longest and most contentious council session in galactic history.